Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Jackie Fish and welcome to the Great War Western Front. I was luckily invited to a play session of this game and got my hands on it for roughly around about 3 hours, and I can say from them 3 hours I am extremely impressed with what this does have to offer and think it could hands down be one of the best strategy games of the year. The game does release on the 30th of March and also has a demo in the next Steam Fest, which I believe starts on February the 6th, so definitely recommend checking it out for free and then making a decision whether or not you want to go ahead and pick up the full game on the 30th of March. The Great War Western Front is of course a World War I game set in 1914 to 1919, allowing you to play on the Western Front as either the Triple Entente, obviously excluding Russia, and or the Central Powers. The game has both a campaign map and real-time battles, both of which offer quite a high level of strategic play. The campaign map itself has you worrying about counter-espionage technology, placing soldiers around the campaign map, maybe there's certain areas of the map you want to reinforce, building new soldiers, upgrading your supplies across the front, which is absolutely imperative because supplies are used for building trenches, calling in more reinforcements, artillery barrages, and pretty much anything revolving around battle. So if a region is undersupplied, they are going to be struggling in the actual real-time battles, causing you to lose your trench positions and also land. You also have stars on the campaign map. These stars represent how long until the region is taken. When you lose a battle in the actual real-time battle maps, one of the stars is taken away from this, and when you run out, the position is lost, your trenches are overrun, and the AI pushes up one step, or you push up closer to the enemy capital. You also, as the allies, have to worry about your coordination. So for example, the British and the French, if they're in the same tile, they will suffer a communication debuff, meaning that they won't be performing as effectively, whereas the Central Powers don't have to worry about that. And of course, when the Americans enter the war later on, they won't be able to mix with the British or French. Well, I mean, they can, but then again, they'll be taking that debuff. So you'll have to think, is it important to reinforce a position that you might lose, but take that debuff, or would you rather kind of keep your line separate? On the campaign map as well, there are also two ways to win. You either take the enemy capital, or you reduce their national will down to 0. This can be seen in the top middle of the screen to go ahead and see how willing one side is to fight. And every battle will go ahead and dictate this. If you win a historic victory against the opponent, they will take a bigger hit to their national will, and that's something that you can grind them down over time. Also, you're constantly having to pay for your casualties as well, so if you have a pretty brutal battle, that is going to eat away at your money, meaning that you can't upgrade your air support, your med stations, your defenses, your supplies actually on the campaign map. So again, there's that really nice kind of combination between battles and the campaign map. I think the campaign does a great job at representing the warfare of World War I, these static lines that, aren't just simply taken from one battle. It'll take time to grind them down, and the actual supply mechanic is just insanely important. If you go ahead and pump supply into a certain region, that means that you'll be able to really go ahead and utilize that, and it just ties in so heavily into the battles, and I think that's something that a lot of more modern strategy games lack, that kind of coordination between the campaign map and battle maps. More of that stuff is just so important. So when you do finally dive into a battle in the Great War of the Western Front, you're going to be situated with, at the beginning of the war, a pretty open battlefield, allowing you to craft your very own trench lines and build them up over time, because from battle to battle, your trench lines will go ahead and remain. So if I lightly build up a trench line in the beginning of the war, that's not going to go ahead and dramatically change unless I specifically go ahead and spend supplies to do that, to increase my defenses. This means in the beginning of the war, if I'm going on the offense, I want to focus on lightly spending my supplies on these trench lines, kind of just keeping them quite safe, but then really focusing on my offense by building more artillery barrages and calling in more infantry to throw at the enemy lines. As I mentioned, and I keep on talking about just how important supplies actually are, you spend supplies on absolutely everything in the battle. So you spend it on upgrading your trenches before the battle, placing down soldiers, artillery positions, calling in air balloons, on you spending that on calling in airplanes later on in the war. You really are constantly thinking about, is it going to be worth it? If I go ahead and send in a 90 supply plane, is it going to get its money's worth by clearing a position? Or when I'm spending 8 supplies per barrage, is it going to go ahead and add up over time and just make this attack not worth it? Or even, is it worth focusing on building up a dedicated trench line in this battle, or should I maybe just save my supplies for the next one? All of that and the way it's interconnected with the campaign map is just a very cool feature, and honestly, throughout the actual demo that I played, I was constantly having to weigh that up. And I think that's just, yeah, a cool system because it really does speak to the actual kind of brutal war of attrition that the World War I actually was. You know, am I just going to be trying to bleed the Central Powers of their supplies? You know, they are also dealing with the same dilemmas. Are they going to be sending hordes of soldiers at me? Maybe their first attack doesn't work, then they're going to want to call a ceasefire and actually go ahead and not attack anymore because it's just not worth the supplies. Or is it kind of a sunken cost, like they've already spent so much that they just want to keep on sending more and more men at the problem? And that is something that you'll quite quickly realize is unsupported attacks are absolutely brutal. Battalions of soldiers, which I think roughly range from around about 180 men per unit, die in an instant if they're not supported. If they are just charging at trench lines, machine guns, infantry in the defending trenches, or even supporting trenches will decimate the units and they will go in about 2, 3, 4 seconds. That means that you're going to be going ahead and sending in thousands of soldiers against one enemy trench position at a time. You're then going to have to be calling in artillery to support that. You're going to have air balloons up in the sky to go ahead and see where the enemy trench lines are and, you know, where they've got soldiers positioned and where their counter batteries are. Because suppressing their counter batteries with your own artillery whilst you're also firing your artilleries on the trenches to suppress their infantry is really the only way you're going to get your men actually into them trenches unscathed. And even then you're going to be suffering fire from the enemy support positions where they set up places to go ahead and fire in as you're assaulting a certain position. And even then, depending on the type of soldiers the AI has in their trenches, you might be coming up against some deadly stormtroopers who are just pros in melee combat and they'll send you packing and you're not going to be able to hold that position. The whole game really does work very, very well, and I think there's just so many components to the game that I think are really well put together, and it is definitely a thinking man's game. One of my concerns, of course, is this going to get a little bit stale doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's really going to come down to how much the technology comes into play and how good the AI is at reacting to stuff. Are they just going to be throwing like stupid, foolish attacks at me, which maybe is quite historically accurate, but as a player, I'm just going to sit there and decimate the enemy lines? Or are they going to be going ahead and doing some nice strategic kind of position attacks, attacking across multiple fronts so I can't counter attack as much? And honestly, I experienced both in the demo. I experienced some attacks where, of course, they did barrage my positions to suppress me and stuff, but I had kind of positions set further back and just destroyed them that way. And then I had other positions where they just completely overwhelmed me across the front line. So it's going to be interesting. Again, of course, the technological advances is going to be really important as well. You know, how much is the warfare going to change when there's stuff like tanks and pillboxes that can't be, you know, as easily destroyed by the artillery strikes, the different types of units and planes, like that's all going to come in and play. And also, is there going to be multiplayer? There is multiplayer on the Steam page, but I'm not sure if that's going to be like individual battles or the campaign. And I think honestly that's going to be a big selling point for a lot of people if this game does have official head-to-head multiplayer where one of you are playing as the Triple Entente and the other one is playing as the Central Powers. I think that's going to be amazing because there's stuff that the AI will do and it will probably get kind of predictable after a while that a player just won't be. A player could sacrifice his entire front line to make you use supplies and lure you into a false sense of security to then only do a foolish counter attack that you would just never expect in a million years and completely overrun your position. I think that for a lot of people is something after you've played a campaign or two could really go ahead and push this game even further, and I think the game is absolutely perfect for it. It has that kind of easy accessibility but also the ability to go ahead and take that just even further with interesting builds and ways to attack positions, and also just even the simple trench designs as well will dramatically change from player-based to actual AI-based. So that's something I'm really hoping they do announce closer to launch on the 30th, because yeah, I think that would be a hell of a lot of fun if they did plan on adding that in, and I think yeah, if they don't, it'll definitely be a missed opportunity. On top of that, the game also does have historical battles, so you can play some of the famous historical battles and try and turn the tide. In my playthrough, I got to play as the Central Powers during the Battle of the Somme, so I got to basically reclaim some positions and hold the British assault as they slowly walked towards me. Luckily in this they didn't just walk towards me, but even still we were under heavy attack reclaiming positions. I played down gas attacks down to destroy the enemy air balloons, so it was a really nice taste of exactly what more of the late game has to offer. So overall, I'm having a lot of fun with the Great War of the Western Front, and this is a game that should definitely be on your radar for sure. And if a good multiplayer system is there, they continue to update the game with maybe some DLCs later on, this could definitely easily be one of the best strategy games of the year. So I highly recommend you check it out during the Steam Neckfest on the 6th of February. Play the demo, kind of get your own opinion of it. Let me know what you guys thought of the game down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.